Okay, so welcome to the NAPI for Node.js team meeting for August 23rd, 2018. We're going to do our regular walkthrough of our current milestone, which is milestone 10, and then some discussion of our milestone 11. Is there anything else that people want to add to the agenda? No? Okay, so let's start with the first issue is the SQLite NAPI port, issue number 288. I did do some work with that on Anisha this week. She'd figured out one of the remaining issues we're trying to figure out was why the test suite would hang in particular cases if there was an error. And it turns out it had to do with some of the ways that when an exception was thrown, we were returning. So I guess one of the methods basically was defined as returning an NAPI value. And so returning the code that was there was trying to return the global null. Returning just a generic false value seemed to work okay. I was thinking it would be even better if we actually could just return null, because we're not returning a value. There is no return value, but we're still trying to figure out if that's going to work or not. So that's the progress on that one. Hopefully then we can, the next step after we figure that out would be to put together a PR against the actual Node SQLite repo as the next step.
Michael, would you mind sharing the screen with the milestone and the
Sure.
issue? Thanks.
I think this is the right one. Yep. Okay, so let me go back to, so here, let me just close that one. So that's that issue. The next issue is investigate use of prebuilt with NAPI.
Yeah, so I got 2 PRs in this morning, one for prebuild and one for prebuild install. And already I'm getting comments back from the maintainers. So I'm going to push ahead on this. So
okay,
we're making progress there.
Sounds good. Get back to, so then that next issue is, the next 2 are burning down list of issues in the node repo, which will be ongoing. We'll move to the next milestone as well. Any particular things people want to raise this week on those fronts?
On the function data leak thingy in Node add-on API, I looked at the code in a little bit more detail, and it's not as simple as it looks. So we cannot simply attach a finalizer with NAPI wrap or otherwise, because the way the code is structured is this will work when you create a function, but when you're defining a class or when you have like property descriptors, then the way the code is organized is that you just declare the property descriptors and it creates the data at the point of declaration, and then it returns the property descriptor. And so when you go to actually create the function, which means you take the list of property descriptors and you create the function, you don't know if that list of property descriptors is coming from user code or if it's coming from another part of Node add-on API itself. So then there are some cases when you should be attaching a finalizer, and then there are other cases when you should not be attaching a finalizer. And right now you can't distinguish between the two. And so I haven't had a chance to try to fix that. But since the whole thing is in line, I'm thinking that we could maybe have 2 different classes. One of them is like a property descriptor internal or whatever, and the other one is a normal property descriptor. And then,
okay, so it's this is in the Node add-on API, not
yes,
API itself, right?
Yeah. So for like NAPI : function new, it's easy. So creating a new function is super easy. You just add a call to NAPI wrap, and that's fine. But for NAPI defined properties, or whichever wrapper ends up calling NAPI defined properties, for that it's not so simple, because it takes a list of property descriptor objects, which are basically wrappers around the NAPI property descriptor structure. And when one of those objects is a function, then it adds the data into the structure, but that data has to be freed. So we need to set a flag somewhere saying this structure is different from the other structure because this structure was created by Node add-on API rather than by the user themselves. So
So if we so we have a property descriptor. If we extended that to have an optional field, which was you know, you need it or not, is that?
Yeah, that's what we would have to do. Yeah, because basically we need to be able to distinguish between property descriptor objects which we instantiate ourselves and versus those which the user instantiates. Since it's all in line, what this amounts to is basically setting a flag in the user's method, which says, you know, when you call NAPI define properties with this list, then you know, attach destructors versus don't.
Right.
Because it ends up being like a Boolean variable in the function. You know, that's when it all boils down. So,
right. So is it that, I mean, so I'd have to go back and look at our property descriptor, but like, is it, so you create, but I guess and a number, part of the advantage is you can create those through like initializer lists, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So you'd want a case where you can provide an initializer list with an extra value, which is like true or false.
Exactly. Yeah. But that would be like a class used internally by Node add-on API and not visible to users Node add-on API. So that's at least, that's my first hunch. Sort of. I haven't tested whether this is possible. So, you know, but it's just not as simple as, you know, wherever there was a to-do saying free this data, you just add a NAPI wrap and call it a day.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Because in all cases except function new, there is nothing to which to append, because you create the data in one place, but you create the function in a different place.
Right.
So that's the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
And so by the time you get to the second place, you don't know that data is special in any way because it's just a void star at that point.
Right. Except that if it's null, I guess it's like you're saying that there's cases where it can be non-null but does not need to be.
Exactly. Cases where it's non-null but user provided versus cases where it's non-null and generated by Node add-on API.
Right.
And we need to somehow distinguish.
Yep. Okay. It should be solvable. Just have to come up with.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. We need to use some C++ template magic, and I think
right.
It's solvable.
Okay. Any other issues?
I don't believe so. I may remember something later as we go through the.
Yep. Okay. I don't think there was too many. I guess there was the other issue of our issue where we added, and API was added, and we didn't bump the NAPI version to sort of come back to haunt us.
Ooh, yeah. Still need to file the backport for 6. I have the 8 one, but I need to go for 6 as well. I hope it fits in nicely with 6 because it's like this environment thing is something that we've sort of been working on since then, and so we'll see how well that fits in.
I mean, yeah, and it sounds like we do have somebody for which it would be breaking to remove it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, growing pain.
Let us know how it goes on 6 if it's.
Yep.
Hopefully, it fits in, or at least something which can be. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, something equivalent. Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah. Let me know when Node shuts down. That I think we can do in 6.
Okay. The bigger problem is probably going to be getting it to land in 6, but.
Yeah.
I think we'll need to argue that it was that like it's not really Semver minor. It's kind of it's a bug that we didn't that it's not there.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
Is the way is. Like the 2 ways this could have happened is, well, the one we did it where we accidentally added it afterwards and didn't do it. So it really is a new thing. But the other way to look at it is it should have been there when we did the backport to 6 and we missed it, which could have happened too. So.
Well, when we did the backport to 6, I don't think we had it.
Well, no, I know. I'm just saying the 2 ways we could have gotten into this situation.
Yes.
Right. And so we might might make the argument that, well, it's equivalent to us having missed the function at this point, right? Because we didn't, because we're in a state where we didn't bump the API, it's equivalent to us not having included it. I mean, that's the other way it could have happened, and it would have made sense to backport it in that case. So, we'll really try not to make it ever happen again, but please, let's just do it. But then it's when there'll be a Semver minor release for 6, maybe a challenge. So
there was an intention not to have another one, right? If I remember correctly.
I don't think it's, well, that's maybe not that strictly, but yes.
All right.
Yeah, really. And I guess there's only a limited amount of time, but even so, it's still like 8-10 months. So
yeah. Well, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Okay. The last one then on the list here is the documentation push for Node add-on API. I know that I saw back and forth that Gabriel, you'd commented on the function reference one, and I think Nick had updated it for that. I don't know if it's landed since then.
Is it just my UI, or is he not in the call anymore? I don't see him on the list of participants.
Nicola's there.
Okay, so then it's just my UI being messed up.
I just addressed something yesterday, and I'm at a good point with object wrap. So in the weekend, I will finish for sure. And then, as always, you will review my work.
Right. So I think Gabriel, we just need your final okay on 299.
Oh, okay. So, okay, yeah, sure. Then I'll have another look. Okay, I thought that was the look that I already had, but then I'll have another one.
Well, you made a bunch of comments, and then I think Nick fixed those up.
Right. Here it is. Okay. Yeah, no worries. Okay, I'll get on that as soon as we're done with the meeting.
Sorry for backwards.
Once you're ready, we can go ahead and land that one. And
okay.
So then let's just go back to the issue, which is talking about actually one other one I do want to get to is there's just plain issues. Come on. I forget where the discussion was happening. Maybe it was Jim had suggested that we submit something for the community corner at JS Interactive.
It's on Milestone 11, Michael.
Okay. So I know I'd seen it somewhere. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, especially if we could do it after your talk.
Yes. So I maybe just include that. So I think I was in a meeting where they basically said the tool is still open for submissions.
All right.
And I don't think that there's so many that they aren't still looking for new ones. So I think if we can go and submit that, in the next day or so, that would get us a good chance of being in.
Okay. Would you like me to do that, Michael?
That would be fantastic.
Okay, I will do that.
Yeah, and if you just want to make a suggestion that, hey, if this could happen after this other particular talk, that would be good. And I think it's, we can, all of us who are there, we can show up and have like I don't know if we want to have a bit of a presentation, but or like just a Q&A and stuff, but that, we should all of us who are there and who are willing, we should just show up and participate.
Yeah.
It would be good.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'll make that happen.
Sounds great. I think then otherwise in there, is there any other things to... I think we already talked about some of the extra suggestions last time. Let's see. GitHub badges, right? So I think we've all got that covered. And I see that, I think, Jim, you already sent an email asking how we create a badge, is it?
Oh, that was Gabriel.
Or Gabriel, right.
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
somebody had. That's
yeah,
good.
It seems pretty pretty loosely done. Like we don't have to have any sort of authoritative place where we store it. You just go to Shields.io, you make a badge, and they make you an SVG and call it a day. So it seems pretty straightforward.
I do think we want to get like, project approval before we start issuing them. So we should probably, and
the thing is, I mean, it's a URL, so anybody can link to it, So I'm not sure how we could enforce that, like it's not access controlled.
But I think that's maybe okay, right?
Yeah.
Like that, like it would be better if it was like a badge that we can only hand out to specific people. But on the other hand, I think people will likely only use it if they've done something, right?
Well, yeah, one would hope so. Yeah, here it is actually. Let me just paste that in the chat.
Yeah.
So that's like an example one.
Let me find the chat now. It's harder. There we go. Okay.
So like you can have something like this.
Oh, okay, I see. And it's not really even that much of a graphic, right?
Yeah. I mean, you just go to like Shields.io and you just type in whatever you want the shield to say, and it will say that, and then it comes up with an SVG.
Okay. So it's really, okay. It's a, I think we should just then, if it's that simple, it's basically, we should just open an issue, I think, in the admin repo saying, here's our intent to do this. This is what it's going to look like. Any comments, suggestions before we start doing this and publicizing it. Does that make sense?
True. Yeah. I mean, if we make it part of the documentation that people can add a badge like this, then we're sort of endorsing the presence of such badges.
Yeah.
But while we may endorse the presence, we are likely not able to influence their content because people can.
No, it's we're not saying anything about it being certified, and we should, in our docs we'll make that clear. This isn't, but this is something that you can do to identify that you've used NAPI, you've implemented it, and I think we can come up with some good wording. But my comment about like opening an admin issue is we just want to make sure it's not a surprise to the project, right?
Yeah.
And people may have some other suggestions or whatever, but I think since it's simple to generate and there's no logo or anything, like there's no Node.js logo or anything in there.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't think NAPI has any sort of protected status as a word, right?
Right. So I don't think we really need to do too much other than to raise the awareness, by having the issue in the admin repo. And if we don't get any sort of concerns or negatives after a week, just update do it and update our documentation. It might be, if you have ideas of how we would update our documentation to reference it, that would probably be good to include in the issue.
Okay, so then file an issue against Node.js admin.
Yeah, yes, because that's where like the TSCN, the ComCom, the sort of joint management of things.
Okay, I'll add a to-do for myself.
Okay, I think that's good, and then basically it'll be I think we'll do that. I don't expect any opposition, and then we can just update our README to do that. Sounds good?
Okay, yep. Got that.
So I guess the other thing too might be, since if you can open an issue under the ABI stable node repo as well, that we can put into Milestone 12. Milestone 11. I'm going to create the Milestone 11. And I'm tempted to, well, we're almost closing out these other things. So anyway, I won't do that yet. I think we should leave it the way it is. But then you could put that issue into Milestone 11.
Okay.
Something we're planning to close out as part of that.
Okay. Okay. Against.
And actually, what I will do, unless we think we need more discussion, brainstorming on this one, maybe this is our content for 11. Although I'll add something here. I'll take that over, and you guys can see it. Go back to here, milestones, milestone 11. Can I actually edit? Well, that wasn't okay. I probably didn't copy it the most effective way. Do this. Edit. And we want to under. So maybe similarly, Jim, when you do create the submission, if you can just add an issue that covers that, and with the content you proposed,
Okay.
we can add to milestone 11, that would be good.
Okay, good.
So do we think this is a good good content for 11?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to close this issue, which talks about content for this one. In the show, we can always adjust as well, but. Okay. I think we already talked about this one, which was good. I don't know, this one, Gabriel, is there anything we should touch on this front?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I did that final modification that you asked for,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really make a difference in terms of performance. So that doesn't hurt the performance putting that back in.
Okay. So,
but whether we want this API or not, that's a different story, right?
Right.
I mean, it will help. But it'll only help the N64 case, because the other ones are pretty. They're pretty slim the way they are. We can't slim them down any further.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense for any other data types.
Okay.
But it does make a little bit of sense for N64.
Does it like, how significant a difference does it make?
It's down there.
But I mean, like, I guess what I'm like is that's maybe not quite what I meant. For this one, was this like a real world situation?
Yeah. This is forget the name of the library that this person was working on. He says so at the top, I think, maybe.
Right.
But yeah, so it did make a difference, because like with him moving to array buffer, and with us giving this faster API, it's pretty much up to what he had at that point using V8. So
right.
because node buffer adds some overhead, and then N64 was more optimal than it is with NAPI, because obviously it was straight V8.
Yep.
But then if you switch to array buffer, which will remove the V8 or the Node.js overhead, and we give him N64 fast, then together he can pretty much recover the performance and have an API to boot.
And I guess if we just remove the check in NAPI get value N64, you would crash if it's not a 64-bit one, right?
Yeah, it would not be as consistent as we'd like. That's basically it.
I was just trying to understand, it's there's the trade-off of a new API versus good error handling, right?
Yeah.
Because now that it's down to just that one, right? Like if it was a whole bunch of APIs, it might have been a different equation.
Yeah,
where safe and non-safe. So if it's one function, yeah, it's unsafe, but it's a little bit less. Not that that still makes it a good idea. It still could be a terrible idea.
Yeah, because the thing is, like in 64 could be sort of a performance intensive use case, right? Because you normally it's used in computation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that's because the other thing about Int64 is you can't make array buffers with Int64 yet. So you pretty much have to have like a plain JavaScript array at that point, which is already terrible, you know. So
Right.
so then that's another reason why you would want this, because I mean, if it was in 32, then you could just use an array buffer, and you can use and you can pretty much do zero copy. But within 64 you can't. So then, you know, if you have to convert to native, then you could slow them down as much as possible.
Okay.
So that's another reason for adding this function. And
so basically,
only adding it for Int64.
Right. So it basically would be NAPI get value Int64 unsafe.
Yeah, unsafe. Yeah. Yeah, unsafe. Yeah, I'm calling it fast, but unsafe is probably a better word for it.
Yeah, that would be my. I guess right now I'm kind of leaning towards, because that one method would not be particularly costly, would it be? Would it?
How do you mean costly?
Well, sorry, not like, is there a way where we wouldn't duplicate a lot of code?
No, definitely not. No. Yeah, and I mean, we can. I'm kind of starting this pattern inside NAPI where I do this templating plus inlining whenever we would duplicate code, and then yes, the code gets duplicated, but only by the compiler and only when it's on its way to becoming, you know, machine code.
Right, which is not nearly as bad as, like, there's no maintenance, right?
We don't really have a concern about size, right? I mean, you know, are we going into any sort of constrained environment where you're optimizing for size? And I guess if you are, then you can, and the compiler can accommodate that and just not inline things, right? So, so I think with inlining, we're doing things the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the couple lines of code is going to make a difference here.
Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, I mean, if we decide that we should have this function, then I can do that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what it comes down to me, if there's a real life situation that we can make significantly faster, and it's really not that much overhead. You know, if we were adding 20 functions, then it's like, okay, that's
forget that. Yeah.
But if it's this one, you know, we've narrowed it down to this one case, and this, like you said, there's some extra things why this one case is a particular problem.
Yeah, and I mean, it started with real world usage example. The whole study started with that. So
I'd be tempted at this point to say yes, and you know.
And let's see what the rest of the collaboration.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. See what other people think, and
yeah, for sure. Okay, so let me make a to-do for myself to PR that. PR NAPI get value int 64 unsafe. What?
Yeah, and that's something. Well, I guess you've got a pattern where you're going to reuse the code. So
yeah. Actually, I have like, you know, that Threadsafe function cleanup PR. I have another one that I'm thinking of doing, and.
I was just going to say, otherwise, it's something that somebody else could probably pretty easily do as well.
Yeah, like volunteers. Unwrap is another one that we need to inline. Right now, unwrap is not inlined, and it should be inlined, because there's no reason why you should make another function call.
Right.
Especially since this could be hot. Like wrapping and unwrapping could be hot. It's not necessarily, but it could be. So,
yeah, every time you invoke a function, you're going to have to unwrap.
Yeah, no, but this is like whenever the add-on calls NAPI unwrap. So
right.
It could, depending on the application, it could be pretty intense, and so inline that. So you know, but just in terms of the coding pattern, that's where it's going, I think.
But it's inlined internally only, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, in the implementation, yeah.
Right, the implementation, not like the function the external people call doesn't get inlined, right?
No.
Yeah. No, I was sure, but just never hurts to ask.
Yeah. No, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
No. It's going to stay nice and C and dynamically linked and all those wonderful things.
Yeah. Okay. No, that sounds good. I think this one could still, if anybody had time to look at it, would be useful.
Which one's this?
Actually, yeah, Hitesh, I was hoping you were going to take BLF time to look at this. Basically, somebody reported that the function call gets called twice. It's on Windows.
Yeah, I can take a look at this.
Okay, that would be good. Maybe you can chime in just letting them know you're going to take a look.
VS table, no, 324, sure.
Yeah, it was 324. Okay, I guess so. This one was. Okay, well, it's waiting on the originator. Oops, sorry. Issues.
There is actually one more potential issue that I just remembered. It's remember the one that came in, I think, from Node.js help regarding returning a value asynchronously in response to a Threadsafe function call.
Just vaguely, I think I remember.
Yeah, basically, the poster pointed out that NAPI Threadsafe function is pretty much one way. So you call into JS, and that's it. But how do you return a value back from JS?
Right.
And asynchronously to boot.
Yep.
And so I spent some time looking at that, and that it is a potential addition or even modification of Threadsafe function, but it can be done without it, but not without using libuv directly. So that could be a point of discussion as to whether we want to modify Threadsafe function. It being experimental, we can technically to sort of add this concept of an in-flight call, that the state for which is stored in an object, but it has lots of implications if we do, right? Because right now, when you call into JavaScript, we have a queue which is potentially limited and potentially blocking at your option for the call into JavaScript, and the call gets removed from the queue when the loop thread wakes up. But then, if we're going to have a path back, then what do we do? Do we create another queue, or do we just use synchronization primitives on the object itself? And if we do, then we can potentially have more objects in flight than there are places in the queue.
Right.
So it becomes quite a bit of a design exercise once.
So the async function lets us have something which is going to get run asynchronously later on
in JavaScript. Yeah.
Right, in JavaScript later on, right? So it can actually run JavaScript.
Yeah. So basically, you can call into JavaScript from another thread, but of course it has to be asynchronous, and we've got that.
Right.
But now, if you want to feed a value back to the original thread, which represents the return value of the function, but in reality, it could be like 5 loops of the event loop because it's asynchronous. Then, like for his example was a promise. When the promise gets resolved, pass the resolution back to the original thread.
Right. So, but we have something. So we have a queue. And when that queue gets invoked, so when the time for that queue gets invoked, we'll automatically run a JavaScript function, right?
Yeah.
Now, if there was a call out that let you define a C function that would get run before that and generate the value to be passed back.
Well, there is, right? Because
Right.
there is already a C function which sort of marshals between the native data coming from the thread and the JavaScript
Right.
values, which it calls the function.
Which is kind of what I thought would be the case. And then it's like, oh, why can't you just in that C function generate, get the return value? You've got to convert the whatever you're returning from C because that's where you're running asynchronously anyway.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that is possible. And in fact, the data coming in from the thread can be a complex object which lives beyond
Right.
the invocation into JavaScript, because it's up to the add-on maintainer to decide when they delete that. Like,
right. So I'm just not quite. I'm missing what you can't do then.
Well, you can do everything you want. I mean, the only thing that happens when the call into JavaScript gets invoked is that this particular data item is removed from the queue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so NAPI Threadsafe function is no longer aware of it. But that doesn't mean the data item has to be destroyed, right?
Right.
If the semantics of the application are such that it is the thread that creates the data item and it is the thread that destroys the data item, then the data item must contain thread synchronization primitives for safely asking, okay, can I delete this? And chances are that after the JavaScript call completes and a value gets assigned that represents the return value from JavaScript, then the thread can say it can be destroyed. But currently, this part of destroying it in the thread and adding the synchronization primitive has to be done by the add-on maintainer. The question is, shall we take on the responsibility of providing a standard implementation for checking whether the return value has been set in JavaScript or not? And if we do take on that responsibility, then how shall we manage these objects? Shall we shall we create another queue? And then when you call into JavaScript, you move the object from one queue to the next. And then if the second queue is full, then do you block? I mean, you don't want to block the thread. So
but what is it? Why do you need, like, what forces you to use libuv in all of this?
Well, because the thread may at any point in time check a flag saying, has the call been answered? Has a return value been set in response to my call? And then if the loop thread is busy setting the return value while the secondary thread is busy checking whether a return value has been set, then you need to have a mutex there. And so then
you're saying it's mutexes are needed in libuv is what? I mean, you could do those natively, right?
Well, no. I mean, what I'm saying is you need to basically create a mutex, and I mean you would use libuv for that because I mean we use libuv for everything else. So then,
but you don't have to. You could, like, a module maintainer could do this without using libuv.
Yes, they could. But what I'm saying is, if we wanted to do this,
sure, if we did it, we'd use libuv. But I'm trying to get at, like, what means that we should do, like, if it's a case where like 90% of people are going to do it and their only other choice is to use libuv, which means they can't use NAPI, then, like, I think it's, I'd be in favor. If it's like, well, you can do it without, you can already do it, and it makes their life slightly easier, or we don't think very many people use it, then I would say,
like we can solve this. We can solve this at the documentation level, at the example level, or at the library level. That's the thing. And I think we should keep in mind that most of the folks using NAPI Threadsafe function come from a background of being well versed in concurrent programming, because that's why they need it. They already have a threading implementation, and now they just need to call into JavaScript. So they need this
like they may already be doing synchronization for other reasons. Across the platform. So I would, my first tendency would be to leave that to them. Unless there's a compelling reason why we can do something that they can't,
Yeah, I mean,
or that will force them to use libuv or something like that.
the only reason we've had so far, even for NAPI Threadsafe function, is that yes, it doesn't expose any special engine API, but it's a very common use case, and we want to avoid having a million implementations which all do things differently, and so we've landed that.
Yeah.
But now, is the remainder worth the continued effort, or shall we try to sort of drag our heels intentionally and in a good way to see if it's really that big of a deal, right? Because so far we've only had one person saying, well, how do I do the return path? And they kind of know how to do the return path, but they still ask the question.
I would just say, just explain if there's a way to do it, here's how you do it, and see what kind of pushback. And because, I mean, we landed this one as experimental. We wanted to get real life usage.
And we have with this one issue, we have real life. It's an example of real life usage,
which is good.
With an additional question. And so I've actually answered with an example of how to do it.
Okay.
And it is the example. It doesn't go like it's not code. It's just basically saying, like, if you want to answer the call asynchronously, then in the marshaller, wrap the data coming in from the thread, pass the wrapped object into JavaScript, and add a binding which receives it back. And then when it receives it back, you set the flag. And in the meantime, the other thread occasionally checks the object. But I didn't elaborate on what it means to occasionally check the object.
Right.
And I leave that up to them.
Yep. I think I'd leave it at that for now.
Yeah. Okay, so just sort of a heads up then that this is something that's going on in terms of like,
because we really want to keep our the API to the minimal. Yeah. The minimal thing that we believe we need, right?
Right, but the other reason I mentioned it is because this is another example of sort of meaningfully wrapping libuv.
Right. Yes.
Because if people have to resort to libuv to do the synchronization, I mean, like you said, they may already have their own, but if they don't, then if they have to resort to libuv, then now we're exposing them to those potential breaks which are ensuing.
Right. So that's where I was at. Like, if it's a guarantee, people just say, I'm just going to go back and use libuv and not use an API.
Yeah.
And then it makes sense, right? Like, we want to wrap the meaningful key parts.
Yes, exactly.
Until we believe that it really is one of those, I'd shy away from it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool.
Okay. And I guess I know you'd opened an issue to discuss the ABI stability of
yes.
libuv. Anything interesting on that front? That's
yeah. It seems like we can't get away with getting any ABI guarantees for 1.x. Like, people want to break it.
Yep.
So then I think we should start documenting that and see how people react.
Right.
And just the same way as it is with previous issue, we shouldn't lightly wrap things, because I think we should concentrate on meaningful use cases rather than one-to-one wrapping.
Absolutely. Yep. So, yeah, like, I mean, the things that are wrapped are things like async wrap, and where there's a use case behind them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, now we found a use case for Threadsafe.
Yeah.
And that meaningfully wraps quite a few parts of it brings together quite a few parts of libuv. So I don't know, maybe for Node.js, that's enough. But then again, if people use libuv in addition to an API, then that's then if
what do we want is, like, over time to understand the cases where that happens. I mean, really, the answer today is you shouldn't, because you're likely to get broken along the way.
Yeah, I mean, less likely than V8, but still, because I mean, libuv strikes me as far stabler than.
But no guarantees, right? I mean.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. We're the only ones making guarantees.
Okay, so it sounds like, maybe we should update our docs to like I'm pretty sure we've already said that in our docs that it's, there's no guarantees on stability of other things, right?
Yes, yes.
But maybe we should update our docs to make that even clearer.
Yeah, maybe point out that one of those other things is libuv.
Yeah.
Because I mean, libuv is kind of part of the project, so
Yep.
it's closer to home than other libraries.
I mean, it's libuv and any Node core API even, right? I mean, it's the only guarantee is what's in any Node API.h or, and as used through Node add-on API.
Yeah. Okay, so let me see.
Does anybody want to take that on? Do a first cut
of a doc update. Well, I mean, I'm already writing the to-do, but if somebody else is...
That's what I was just looking at. We don't want you to have all the to-dos, right? So if somebody else wanted to do that one.
This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is at the top of NAPI.md.
I think there's probably a few places we'd want, like, I think we'd want to go through like our README. We'd want to look at the API docs, the include file, maybe just look for wherever we talk about an API in the documentation and just look at what we've already got and make sure that we think it's clear.
Yeah. The top of NAPI.md is definitely a good starting point.
Yeah,
because it talks about that.
Yeah, but probably also like the README somewhere for Node add-on API and ABI stable node.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well.
Okay. All right. Let me write down.
Maybe just if you took the action to create an issue to do and list where you think we should do those updates.
Yeah.
And other people might be able to jump in and help you for a couple of those.
Create issue with list of places where to update an API docs to point out that an API is the only API.
Yeah. That way, because like whoever, if I have time, I might do the one of them somewhere, and whoever gets to them first can do it. And add that into milestone 12 or milestone 11. Sorry.
Okay. Add to milestone 11. Okay. All right.
Okay. Any other things we should talk about this week? Okay, if not, then I guess thanks for everybody for taking the time, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
All right, talk to you next week.
Okay,
talk to you guys later. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Nicola.